the founder and president of the National Pro-Life Union on Capitol Hill, and she's literally banging on the doors on a daily basis here in the Capitol, and doesn't get the fanfare or the press, because, well, to a great extent, the media kind of ignores what we do. But she's tireless in doing that. She's a real lion chaser, as I mentioned earlier. And she was Miss Delaware years ago, and in our minds, that's right, still Miss Delaware. She was a pioneer in that area, being the first. Yes. She was a pioneer in that area in being the first African American that was given that coveted title, and so continues from that point to do some amazing things in the late 80s as president and director of Lippert Corporation. Her main achievement was co-designing a $36 million dinner theater and nightclub in Guam. So she's traveled throughout the world being involved with other pursuits, but I guess God always had a plan for what she's doing today. She's been actively involved in a number of charities. Jersey Girl spent a year working with the mentally disabled for the ARC of Atlantic County, New Jersey, and several meals to Atlantic City homeless. Okay, I'm just going to cut because there's more information here. Yeah. Formerly, she served as National Director of Black Americans for Life, which is an outreach of National Right to Life Committee. She's a sought-after speaker on the national circuit, so again, a real champion and a lion chaser in standing up for the truth. And God is well pleased with you, ladies and gentlemen. Mrs. Day Gardner.
Thank you so much, Lonnie. And I, again, can't thank you enough, Star, for everything you've done today, bringing us all together. And we all know we've worked with each other over the years, so we know that we're all in this fight together and that we can't make it just one of us alone, that we all have a specific part in a specific place where God has placed us. And it's amazing to see him at work in each and every one of you here. If we start out with, I hadn't originally planned to go to the trial. We talked about the trial an awful lot, but as of course, as you know, in November, when we saw that maybe the polls didn't go in the way that we had hoped, and we're going to be stuck with this guy for another 4 years, I think that I felt very kind of depressed. Not as depressed as the first 4, but I was depressed again. I thought, here we go again, more of this guy. And keeping in mind that with President Obama, with his, the first time around, overturning the partial birth abortion ban, and then the Mexico City policy, and all these things, and making it very obvious that he supported the abortion industry and the abortion lobby. It was very depressing, and then to think we're going to have another 4 years, it just was even more so depressing. And, I found myself just saying, well, Lord, then what do you want me to do? What comes next? And around in December, I found out that one of my major funding sources was gone. And I thought, okay, now, it's like, now we have another 4 years of President Obama. I don't have the funding that I need. So what do you want me to do? So it just kind of went through the March for Life and everything. And I was kind of a little bit kind of there. And at the same time, you're other places thinking, where am I going? In a lot of prayer. And it just so happened, of course, we heard about the Gosnell Trial, and I wanted to go. I was with a lot of my comrades and colleagues back in 2010 when we did a rally at Gosnell's clinic when the whole thing first came out. And then it went kind of silent, and you didn't hear anything, of course, and then the trial's coming up, and I wanted to go, and realizing that I just don't really have the funding to do that. And as it was, once again, God opens the doors, and if there's no way, he will provide a way. And I was thinking, I don't have the funding to go there to Philadelphia, back and forth, the same hotels. I just don't have it. And God said, well, don't worry about that. I'll provide. And he did. So I was able to be there over a 5-week period and going 2 to 3 days per week, keeping in mind that the court was only 4 days a week. So I was there for most of the what had to be said. It was absolutely horrible. This is 3801 Lancaster Avenue, and this is the place where I stood with Alveda and Pastor Broden and just so many of us, Catherine. We were all here in front of this building. And the thing I remember Alveda pointing up and saying, look at up top, look at the father and mother, or husband and wife, or man and woman, and the baby they're holding, And the whole thing was very surreal. And as a matter of fact, a woman came along that day who had had an abortion at this facility, and she was very distraught. And we, prayed with her and just stayed in prayer. That documentary, 3801, if you haven't seen it, you should see it. It's really interesting, and it's very good. You can get it on YouTube or go to the website. Talking about the squalor, now you hear all these people testifying, giving their testimony about what went on in the Gosnell Clinic. It is so much worse than these pictures can show. But, there was, it looks like rust down there, but they believe that it's blood. It's just dirty, filthy. This is an area where they stored some of the babies. You can see this is a part of the ceiling that had kind of caved in. The roof had caved in. There was leaking. It was dirty, filthy, nasty. This is the thing that got me. And sometimes I get a little choked up even now, because I've been doing this for, oh my goodness, like 15, 16 years, something like 15 years. And it's hard for me to think that human beings can do this to other human beings, especially those who can't fight back, I mean, somebody try that with me. I'll pick up a baseball bat or something. I'll try to fight back. But they have no choice. I mean, there's nothing. Their last line of defense is the mother. And these children, what I found out, which I did not know, not only are they in plastic bags, but before they put them in plastic bags, they were actually put into other containers. They were put in milk bottles. They were put into cat food containers. So their bodies were stuffed into these milk bottles, cat food containers, soft drink bottles first, and then put into these bags and put into freezers.
Is it correct that the people had their lunches in the refrigerators? The people that
Well, they had two refrigerators. One, they had their lunches in, and then the freezer had some babies in, and then they had another freezer with just baby parts in it. But when I heard that they were stuffed into containers, I didn't know that, and I thought, what? That's crazy. Who would do? But they stuffed their bodies into cat food containers and bottles. There were 27 feet at one time in jars, baby feet. One of the jars actually had a baby thigh and a leg, the whole leg. It's a thigh and the leg and the foot all connected in one of the containers. The 2 feet here. Now, Gosnell, when they were asking, they were saying, well, why would you, in the grand jury report, why did you have the baby feet? He said, well, for DNA, it's normal procedure for us to keep something for DNA purposes. But the 2 feet belong to the same child. I mean, you have to really think, this man is crazy. And I first thought right away, the only type of person who would do something like this would be like a serial killer, a collector, of babies. There he is, the man himself, and I praise God. It's like Star just told me today about, at lunch, about the woman who was on trial with him, which was Eileen O'Neill. And she was not charged with baby killing. She was charged with racketeering, giving out prescriptions, and she was not a doctor. So she was a whole bunch of other things. So she was charged and she was guilty. I didn't know she was guilty until today, because as soon as I heard that Kermit Gosnell was convicted, I fell on the floor and I was just in tears and just praising God, and I didn't hear the rest of it. So thank you, Star, for that information. I didn't know. You can see the things that he was guilty of. This is Eileen O'Neill. She's also guilty for the things that she did. I don't know which counts. I'll go home and read that, because I didn't even know that till today. I didn't pay any attention to it. But it's amazing that she's not a doctor. But they called her Dr. Eileen, Dr. O'Neill. This is really sad. This girl admitted to killing a baby. And these are all people who, in exchange for their testimony, are hoping to get lighter sentences. So I have no idea what the sentencing is for this girl. Of course, there were many. Several of the people, it's really interesting. They had some mental problems. This woman had a few mental problems. I mean, you can kind of tell when you look at her. You think, oh boy. But anyway, you can see some of the things that they were involved in. She was also involved in murdering a child. When you think about the children that were killed here, it's what's really horrific is that this guy is he's really scary. He's really scary. He, with no emotion, kind of a smirk on his face, he very openly talked and kind of looked like he really enjoyed telling the jury and telling the court what happened. He really enjoyed it, and he was like very open about the children that he killed. About, he took it very lightly. A lot of these people, it's very difficult to kind of sit in a courtroom and see how they spoke. So, like it was nothing at all. This woman is also involved with the death of a child. You can see the things that she did. Sherry West. This is Gosnell's wife. Kermit Gosnell's wife is, as of yesterday, was under house arrest. She was not in jail. She was under house arrest. She is just as guilty and worse. She decided she didn't want to go through a trial. But I think that what's really interesting about this woman, Mrs. Gosnell, and her husband, is that they did the abortion clinic they worked in was supposed to be closed on Sundays, but on Sundays only Gosnell and his wife did the abortions. They were late-term abortions. They wanted to make sure that nobody else knew what was going on there. So they did the most horrific abortions, I believe they did, because the other abortions they didn't mind anyone knowing, but of their staff. But there were certain ones that they only did themselves, the two of them.
Let me interject. Keep in mind, you need to let them know.
Yeah.
Gosnell performed 16,000 abortions. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is why she's separating the two
Yeah.
groups. 16,000 abortions.
Exactly. And the thing is that he's been doing this for over 30 years. So, and you've heard talk earlier, Star mentioned the Mother's Day Massacre. So he's really an evil person. And I honestly believe, just like you, there are people who think that people who are child molesters and perverts will try to get into the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts, or they'll become school teachers or whatever, so they can be around the people that they want to, molest or whatever. I believe that there are some people, like doctors, maybe like these abortion doctors, who get off in killing children and the whole macabre atmosphere of it. They really get off in it. I think that Gosnell is one of those people. The people that he hired were people who all had problems for some reason. They couldn't get jobs. They couldn't get their medical degrees. I mean, they all had problems having employment. This woman here was a foster sister to Kermit Gosnell, and she was really interesting. There she is in tears. Elizabeth Hampton, was on the stand the first day that I went to court, and what I thought was really interesting about her testimony is that she was, she said, all I did was I just cleaned. I didn't do anything else. I didn't, have any part of killing babies. All I did was clean. I didn't do anything else. But you hear her talk about how she cleaned. She was the person who would empty the suction machines. She was the person who would take the big bucket of blood and baby body parts. And it was at one time, and Gosnell had a fallout with, I guess, whoever collected the hazmat or whatever they call it to collect this stuff. But anyway, that when they said, well, what do you do with it? She said, well, I'm the person that empties that, and I'm the person that's supposed to, to get rid of it. And they said, what do you do with it? And she would dump the bucket of blood and baby body parts in the sink and then turn on the garbage disposal. Oh. So, the thing is, I was sitting there in court, and they had all this stuff in court. They had the chairs in court, and they had the all this equipment, and that was really, really old stuff. And I was thinking, why would they have a garbage disposal? I couldn't think of it. And then when she was on the stand, I thought, oh no, just so they had the garbage disposal there because there was evidence. They had it in evidence that garbage disposal had evidence of baby fetal body parts. Well, that's the next thing. That was coming up next. With this woman, another thing, she was charged with a count of perjury, but so she said she didn't do anything else. There were other people who testified, who testified that this woman who didn't do anything but clean the place, and she would say, I cleaned the windows and I cleaned the the fish tank, and that was all. But then she mentioned this thing about emptying the bloody buckets. But she also, it came out that 2 other people said that she also held people down. That when some girls would, start screaming or squirming or that, fighting back or whatever, and it was her job to help hold them down. So, she didn't just do that. We have to keep in mind that Kermit Gosnell, he is so evil and so despicable that he didn't only charge for the abortion. Of course, there were, some abortions go up. The closer you are to your delivery or due date, the more expensive it becomes. So the thing is that he started out at one price, and it was more depending on how far along you were. Not only that, he also charged anesthesia in the same way. If you were poor, you really didn't get anesthesia. If you wanted anesthesia, it would be like an extra $100 for a little bit. Or if you wanted more, it would be a little bit different, a different fee. So he had different fees for a price structure depending on what you could afford. Now, anyone who's had any work done in a hospital, anesthesiologist goes about what your weight is, what your medical background, your age. I mean, there's so many things that come into criteria for giving you a dosage of anesthesia. And these people are medically trained for years to do that, to understand the right amount to give you. Well, Kermit Gosnell hired a 15-year-old girl to do that. And this girl was given a book, which she read, she said, for about a half hour. And he talked to her for like 20 minutes and said, so there you go. Now you're an anesthesiologist. And she was giving anesthesiology to people. Now, of course, I said the poorest girls couldn't afford it. So no matter how much excruciating pain you were in, they didn't get that. So they needed someone to help hold them down. And hence, that's what this woman did. But the thing is, she was on stage crying. She was in the stand crying and saying, you know what, I don't want to go. I'm here because I don't want to go back to jail. I want to tell the truth. I want to get the word out. I don't want to go back to jail. And she's like crying. And I'm sitting there thinking, after everything you've done and you've seen and you're talking, it still comes down, she's worried about herself. No remorse. She's worried about herself, her own skin. So I'm hoping she spends a lot of time in jail. Yes.
For the cheaper ones that couldn't afford to get any anesthesiology, if they could afford a little bit of money, they provided them with nitrous oxide. I don't know if any of you guys know what that is. When you go to the dentist and have your teeth worked on, they give you the happy gas.
Yeah,
that's what that is.
Yeah.
And that's why when they have to hold, they still have to hold them down because you still feel all the pain. It just makes you feel like you're floating a little bit.
Yeah, it doesn't, but you still feel the pain.
Just a little.
And then if they squirmed around too much, Kermit Gosnell was known to slap them or hit them. Yeah.
We want to go through the presentation, and then we'll take comments.
Okay.
We're taping and streaming.
Okay.
And so all this information is not getting.
So Kermit Gosnell would even hit or slap a woman if she was squirming around too much, and he usually said, "Oh, stop being a big baby. You're being a big baby." Okay. These are so we'll just go through a few of these others here. This woman was not in court. I'm not really sure what happened with her. They said there's no state case, but she did work there. She looks really mean. Yes, she didn't testify. This woman worked there, and she deserves some kudos because she was the one that took a lot of pictures. So a lot of the pictures you see of the aborted babies, she went around taking. And she actually tried to report Gosnell, and no one took her seriously. Of course, this is Karnamaya Mongar. She lost her life because of Gosnell, and it was over medication. She was just so doped up, so drugged, and her heart failed. And of course, Gosnell thought he didn't deserve to be, charged with her death. Here's another thing. The person someone came in from. Of course, they said that he worked on her. I don't know, but they said that he did. At least one person said that he worked on this woman. But the thing is that the paramedics came in and she was flatlined. She was just laying there. The paramedics started working on her while Kermit Gosnell stood over in the corner, like shocked, like he didn't know what to do. He was just standing there, and they said that he had his arms folded and he just stood there. Now, here's a doctor that has a whole lot of training, 8 years or more, 10 years, I don't know how long it takes to be a doctor, but a lot of years training. He's been doing this for more than 30 years. He was like, he didn't know what to do with Carnemeyer Mongar. The paramedic came in, and he had 2 years, which boils down to like about 2 years associate's degree training, and he was able to get her a pulse. So because of him, Carnemeyer Mongar lasted a little bit longer, long enough to get to the hospital. But if Kermit Gosnell knew anything about what he was doing, there was no reason for this lady to die. But she's gone. And she left behind a family. This is her daughter, and this is also a family friend who she called uncle, but it wasn't really an uncle. It's kind of a strange situation. It was someone who considered himself the brother of her father, a good friend. But the daughter, to hear her testimony in court and how she had to have an interpreter because her English wasn't good. And it was really sad that the Hampton woman that you saw before, the one that emptied the bloody bucket of water, she said that, she was able to speak to this woman, and they said this and they said that. Come to find out, the woman can barely speak English. So evidently it was all lies. Whatever she told the police in the beginning was lies. This was the baby that Kermit Gosnell said was big enough to walk with him to the bus stop. This baby was about 30 to 34 weeks, almost home, almost free, and this is how he ended up. He was put into, it's kind of hard, he's put into a plastic shoebox. And of course he's too big, so his arms and everything were hanging out. And this is the baby that pulled his arms in. So he was alive before Kermit Gosnell slit his neck. This baby also, keep in mind, first of all, of all those babies in the freezers, there were 47 that I showed you before in the freezers, in the plastic bags, 47. The difficulty came when all of these children were frozen. They had to de-thaw them. And they had to unthaw them, and they had to do it very, very slowly, so that so the bodies wouldn't decompose too fast. So they did it very, very slowly, and once they were thawed out, then you can see this is how this child was killed. Just can you imagine if anybody, sitting here, if anybody just came up with this great big scissors, just stabbed you in the back of the neck and start cutting, I can't imagine the pain and what these children went through. I remember thinking that, it's like they're delivered, because he made sure that children were delivered first. And I wondered about that. I thought, well, these babies were delivered alive, but there was digoxin. I'm sure you've probably heard about it, which is usually to kill these children, because late-term abortions are allowed up till, even in Maryland, I think it's up to 9 months. But what they do is that the babies have to die first. They have to be killed first. So they inject digoxin, which becomes a poison to the baby, through the mother's stomach into the child's chest. And the child is supposed to die, and then they can deliver this dead child. But what happened is that with Gosnell, he didn't want to pay for the digoxin. So it was very expensive, and he said that he did it. His staff member said that he tried it like twice and it didn't work out right, so he just started delivering them and then killing them afterwards. There's, of course, this baby that they say breathed for 20 minutes. This one, actually, they said pulled his hand away, and this is one of the babies that at first they charged Gosnell with, and then they took it away and then they put it back on there. So this is one of those babies that he's charged with killing. It was reinstated, as you can see down the bottom. You'd hear about the baby swimming in the toilet. That was the baby that they actually said was born into the toilet and was moving and everything. And then, of course, the girl took the baby out of the toilet and then killed the child. The sad thing is that of all these children, and we're just coming down on the end now, but he's been doing this for more than 30 years. There weren't just these 7 children. He ended up being charged with killing only 4, because the judge felt that those 4 were the ones that they had the most evidence of, and that's why it came down. They took away the other 3 babies because they didn't have as much proof. As you can see, all of these babies in Pennsylvania, it's 24 weeks. I think it comes out to like 23 point something weeks, but about 24 weeks. Anything over that is an illegal abortion. And this Gosnell did late-term abortions and killed these children. There was a big thing about were the babies alive, and of course there were many of his the people who worked there, the testimony who said yes, the babies were alive. Steve Massoff, the worker, he went by Dr. Steve. He's not a doctor either, but the thing is, he faked being a doctor. He actually saw patients. Now keep this in mind. Any woman knows when you go to a gynecological visit how invasive it is and how uncomfortable it is, but you think it's a necessary thing you just have to do. This man saw women as patients and delivered babies, and he's not a doctor. This is a picture of course, Gosnell and his lawyer. His attorney, I heard him speaking to Pastor Father Frank, and evidently he's Catholic also. Of course, the Gosnell Clinic is closed. We have to keep in mind that it was not only was it filthy, it was falling apart. It always leaked. They had buckets out for rain and stuff. The roof was falling in and was leaking. Gosnell had at least 4 or 5 different properties. They were very badly kept, most of them. Even his house. They showed pictures of his house on the 2nd floor. And did you ever watch those hoarding shows? Well, it looked like his bedroom looked like a hoarding. It was like clothes and stuff just piled everywhere. It was a hot mess. And that's where he lived. But also now, he had a house in Brigantine, New Jersey. And I was sat there watching Gosnell as he came. First of all, whenever he came out very, straight and tall, and with this little, case under his arm. And he'd look out into every single day, came out and looked into the I would say like an audience or whatever, but looked into the courtroom like, here I am, with a slight smile on his face, or he'd be joking with the person guarding him. Always very happy and very light. He came out. And, you sit there and watch him. And I remember this one day, the first time he came out, I just thought, I'm just going to stare this man down. I want to see into his soul, And the thing is, he eventually turned he averted his eyes. But he sat down, and I remember the day that they had flat screens throughout the courtroom, and they had one on the prosecution's desk, and they had one on the defense attorney's desk. And when they put up his Brigantine, New Jersey residence with the boat parked in the the driveway and the dock out back with the water, he actually was smiling and pointing like, I have this and I have that. I mean, he was really showing his attorney, different things. And he was smiling really happily, showing him what he had, the things he owned. I thought that was sick. Of course, sharing culpability, we all know. Planned Parenthood, the National Abortion Federation, NARAL, they're all in this together. Those are our enemies. We have to fight them. We have to battle. And this is to show, like everybody says, you hear the most notorious doctor, this abortion doctor. Folks, this is all over. We know. It's in every state and most of the big cities around the country. We know it. Gosnell is not the only one doing this. There are people doing late-term abortions. There are people delivering babies and killing them all over America. So this is not anything new. Abortion facilities are dirty, filthy places because they make their money shuffling women in and shuffling them out. It's a bloody business. It's happening everywhere. These happen to be Wichita and also Michigan. People don't like to see these photos. I know it's hard. But you know what? If we don't see what's happening, if you don't see what's going on, if you don't see the truth, how will you know? And I never realized that more. That I was saying there were 2 in the courtroom with. There were no media there when we went there. There was maybe 2 local newspapers, the Inquirer, one other, and there was a blogger there. And I was there with Cheryl Sullinger, who's with Operation Rescue, which is amazing. She reported on it every single day and kept us all, up to date, and kept most pro-lifers up to date on what was going on. And what I realized is that there were, by the end of the trial, after seeing these horrible, horrible photos that nobody wants to look at, there were two people. One man appeared on Huckabee about a week or so ago, who said that being in that trial, seeing the photos changed his mind. He was pro-choice until he saw what was happening to these children. And then there was another woman, and I don't want to say, she's with the news, I don't want to say where she's from because her media is very, because of her job, I don't want her to get in trouble or lose her job or anything, but she was very, very pro-choice. And after being in the courtroom and seeing what happens to these children, she said that it's just so wrong. She said, I don't know what I was thinking, that is just so wrong. So we know that these pictures, as horrible as they are, change hearts and change minds. And I think from this point we have to really think, what can we do now? So what do we do about it? What do we do with this information? But I think more than anything we have to realize that we're at a very pivotal place, because God, with everything that was going through, I think about last November, I think about losing funding and all that type of stuff, and you get to this point, you think, God is saying, I'm giving all of us, all of you, this is on a silver platter. Do my work. Get out there and do my work. Do what I have set you up to do, what you know how to do. And we're coming together with the thanks of Star Parker and Urban Cure, and so that we can work together and end this atrocity, and we can do it. And I'm hoping that's what we will help us to plan today. Thank you.